Kia ora everyone, hello again, welcome to another update video of this awesome project where we've planted a few thousand New Zealand native trees straight into a grassy paddock, just like you can see on that side. And today I want to talk about some of the rain we finally had, yay, and also take the opportunity to talk about a few other details that I haven't shared yet so far. So you might wonder why I'm showing you this crack. Well, it's basically because in the previous update video I showed you what it looked like after a long time without any rain, and you can definitely see in the meantime, even though it is still quite solid, the soil is definitely quite moist. Get that to focus. And that is on the pathway. And then I'll also give you a comparison between when I dig down in here, and then you can really see the difference it's made. There we go. See if we can get that into focus. So this is a nice moist looking soil, and we've had quite quickly after the update video that I made, I think the same weekend or a week after, we've had about a month's worth of rain in a few days, which is a lot of rain, which hopefully all soaked into the soil. Judging by the pond, or the pond to be, which you can see right over here, I went down in my regular shoes, not gumboots, very risky I know. I went down there and had a look, and there's still water, albeit very little, standing in the pond, so that's a good sign, meaning that a lot of the water did get into the soil and is probably flowing towards the lower points in the landscape. So then, in the previous updates, I've talked about quite extensively of how I perceive the grass to act as a living, amazing living mulch, helping keep the soil in and protect the plants from drying out in the very dry season that we had. But however, there's another hypothesis that we've come across. I talked about how the groundwater had dropped to 80 centimeters below the surface, which is quite low. I'd think that most of these young fellas and young ladies and young plants would not have access, direct access to that groundwater level at its lowest point. But the way water works in the soil still might have contributed to keeping the soil below the surface moist enough for these plants to get through the very dry period. The final thing I want to talk about today is the fencing, and you might have seen it in some of the previous videos, but I haven't really talked about it yet so far. So around the whole perimeter of the paddock there's fencing, and you can see it right here, and it goes all the way around, and there's this mesh in the middle, and then there's a top wire and a bottom wire that in theory run electricity, but it looks like it's turned off because the thing's not connected. But once you click that in, the electricity comes on, and there's the ticking, the common ticking sound. The question remains whether there's a lot of wild animals, except for the birds of course, but whether there's any other wild animals that would even get close, because we're pretty much surrounded by vineyards on all sides, so life seems to be pretty far away at this point. Nonetheless, it's a precaution, and besides that, of course, the grass and the sleeves, which a lot of the plants have, not all of them, but many of them do, would offer a second protection. So there is definitely some work and investment of time and resources that has gone into making sure that anything that would like to nibble on young baby plants, trying to make it difficult or maybe even impossible for them to do so. That's pretty much what I wanted to share with you today. So we've had quite some rain, and probably most likely there's enough moisture in the soil to get these plants through the winter, so that's not something we have to be worrying about anymore. The next thing we do have to worry about is the next round of plants that need to go in. We plan to do another few thousand, but judging by the space and the limits that poses, we'll probably bring that number down a bit, but don't worry, I'll definitely be around and document that, especially since I wasn't there for the first round of planting, so we don't have any footage of that.